Hi and welcome to Amipal. It's an update episode. I've got one or two things to run through, nothing of great import, but the reason why I haven't done any episodes of late is because basically I've been using the machine, which is ultimately why I got them in the first place. First things first, I've been doing lots of stuff in Blitz Basic. I've been trying to create a tiled map generator using bitmaps and dpaint and all sorts of bits and pieces. So I'll go into that in a minute. If you're wondering what I'm wearing here, it's my Amiga Power kind of jumper t-shirt. I actually got it thrown at me by a former member of the Amiga Power staff for the Amiga Power reunion, which was hosted by the Guardian newspaper and Keith Stewart up in London in 2016, and it was a fantastic evening. And one of they gave out some prizes, I suppose you could call them, for people who ask questions, and I asked a question. So I got this wonderful sweatshirt, which I believe was used for painting and decorating. Don't know if you can see that. So it is a bit manky, but you know, I suppose it's a piece of history. I'll put a link to the SoundCloud Amiga Power reunion recording at the end of this, so you can listen in on by yourselves. It is very good. It's very funny. So have a listen. Also, another thing. Power supplies. This is the standard A500 PSU. It weighs approximately the same as an African elephant and supplies just enough power for an Amiga 500 and not much else. It kind of gives a bit more power than the ones that come with the 1200 and 600, so it works a bit better on an A1200 that's slightly expanded. But just like the machines, they're showing their age. This one's actually got quite a big kind of crushing dent in it. The machine is currently plugged into an A500 power supply. Oh god, that was heavy. I've had modded. Basically, the power supply itself went pop shortly after I plugged it in. It literally made that sound. And I contacted somebody called Phil Ayres on the Commodore Amiga Facebook group because he was offering to basically scoop out the innards and replace them with a Meanwell 65 watt power supply. You can use those separately, but you have to kind of like create your own plug to go into the back of the 1200, and they always look a bit ugly. But this way, you not only get to keep the original PSU shape, so that it looks original, but you also use the same connector for it. So you don't use any of the connectors. It's basically the same that goes into the back of the machine. Oh, I thought I reset it then. So it all looks the same. You know, you've still got the power brick down there, which, you know, for some people might be a bit awkward because they are quite chunky. But, you know, I like to try and keep it similar to how it was, rather than, you know, have like all this new stuff hanging off it. So that's now powered by a very nice 65 watt power supply. It's been thoroughly tested by Phil. I think he did it for 35 quid for me, so good job. I'm probably going to send a few more of them away, like that one I just lifted. Oh, that's another thing. By scooping out those innards, it reduces the weight significantly, so it's about a kilo lighter. Literally a kilo lighter than just the standard 500 power supply. So, you know, if you're lugging your Amigas round as well, that's kind of helpful. So, let's get into Blitz. Okay, so, Blitz 2. I'm just using the regular TED editor compiler. The only reason I'm doing that is because this 1200 doesn't actually have the SD card coming out the back like my other one. Let me just show you what I mean. This one, see, has a fly lead with it coming out the back, but the other one, it's internal. is where I got the recap one back and just kind of shoved it back in there. So I can't take it out and install it from FSUAE like I've been doing with other bits and pieces. So we just got the regular TED. So first of all, I created an array test. Basically, the idea was that I wanted to create a map based on information that was stored in an array. So we create an array, we store values in it, and then we read from the array and write that to a bitmap. So first of all, I just wanted to kind of create an array, which, as you can see, here it is all populated. Ta-da! It's a 32 by 32 array. We basically just write an integer in there and increment it so that every row gets 0 to 31, and then it's 0 to 31 down. So that was my first test, just to make sure I could actually work with arrays in the first place. The second test, here we go. This is where I actually start doing a bit more with bitmaps, loading bitmaps in, and actually using block while reading from the array to just compile it. There we go. So we've got we've populated it with a water tile across the entire bitmap. I'll put an ice tile at the top, and these numbers at the top basically show the palette. I'll come back to that because I've got issues with that. And then the green's grass, and we just randomly put that in. That's an interesting effect, I haven't seen that before. Custom mouse pointer, which uses a sprite. So we get a shape, and then we get a sprite from the shape, and we attach it to the mouse movement. And you can see it scrolls as well. So we've got scrolling as you reach the edges of the screen, so we can scroll around the map, as it were. So, you know, it's not very pretty there. We're just putting grass on top of water. So my next step, average. Now this is a bit more complicated. I actually start to jump into functions, into statements, so that the same bit of code can be called multiple times and have a parameter passed to it. In this case, I've got a statement called average map, where you pass the tile number to it, and it works out which tile to work with, which tile to check for, which tile to write back to the bitmap. And then we've got a sub here for create map array as well. So, oh, that's all the way at the bottom. Average map too. So there's lots of different things in there. We use a copper list to generate our display. It's just got a background on it at the moment. No, or did I put a foreground on it? Let's compile and run, because I did some work last night. I can't really remember where I got to. There we go. So we've got mountains being put in. We're having our high points added first, and then I run my averaging test, where a 3x3 array moves through the map, and where we get a high point, it then averages the tiles around it, but only kind of like up, down, left, right. And I've started to implement a bit of randomization in there so that we don't end up with quite so many. You can kind of see how it can happen. You kind of get this diamond effect, and I need to move beyond that so that it kind of branches out a bit. There's another one. There's a clear example of it. I also experimented with adding in the foreground for the dual playfield, what is essentially the menu. So we've got what will be buttons here to go into various menu items, so you can see things. The numbers on screen here indicate the tile number. That was so that I could check to see that the correct tile, correct shape was being mapped to the tile and then written to the bitmap via block. I'll get rid of those numbers in the long run, but they'll stay there now while I continue to develop this this map generator. No ice on this one because I was just kind of concentrating on making sure that this kind of generated properly here. So I'll add that in at a later date. I keep getting an interesting mouse effect there. Haven't seen that before. Doesn't seem to be recreatable easily. These numbers here indicate the palette that's used. Now this is a 32 colour copper list. So each bitmap is we load a 32 colour bitmap for each layer, so the background and the foreground, but that then gets split into limited colours. And I'm trying to work out where I've gone wrong, because I think you can have like 16 colours for one layer and 16 for the other, but I only seem to be getting 8. You can see it kind of recreates. You get like black, blue, variations of grey, some green, some blue, and then it goes back around. So I need to look into that a bit more. If anyone's got any ideas on that, I'll try and I'll paste up some of the text for the copper list and how it's generated, just in case that's where I'm going wrong, because I don't seem to be able to get around that. You can see these buttons, for instance, they are supposed to be kind of yellow, and the blue bits are red. And this bit here is supposed to be grey. This building here is supposed to be grey. So I'm not really sure where I'm going wrong. These tiles themselves are the right colour, but I don't really want an 8 colour background. I want this to look pretty, not basic. But while I'm trying to work that out, I'm also going to work on kind of randomising this a bit more, so that we get just not just mountains as the starting point. We'll get a few kind of green splotches out in the sea area. The coastline as well, I'm going to try and just prettify that a bit so that it's a lot smoother. The issue with the block command is that all shapes that you block have to be multiples of 16 pixels, so it can be 16, 32, 48. These are 32 pixel by 32 pixel, which they're quite large, they're quite chunky. I do think that provides a nice map, but I do need to smooth them out so that we kind of get some corners on here, and hopefully get some more colours as well. So that's what I've been doing. It's quite a few hours of work so far, and it's really just a case of me working out what I can do in Blitz. I'm not really sure of the long-term plans for what I'm doing here are. I'll probably fall into it as I make it. So watch this space. Give me a shout for any updates if you want me to tell you what else I've been doing with it. But I'm getting there one step at a time. So that's it for today's update. Said it would be short, didn't I? Did I? Anyway, I've been through the power supply. We talked about Blitz. I've talked about Amiga Power Reunion. I'll put links to all the things I've discussed today in the bit underneath. Feel free to comment as always. Hopefully I'll have a few more things to go through with you next time, because I do have bits that I need to install in the tower, for instance. And I've got a GoTech to plug in somewhere as well. Not to mention my 500s. I really need to dig those out in the loft and see what their state is, because I am really worried about those. But anyway, until next time, thanks for watching.